Guys, welcome again to Math 5. For today, we'll continue the discussion on Lecture 2. So we have Principles of Code Reuse. We have two snippets of code here. If you will notice, pareho lang sila, no? You have the name variable, the variable name, the variable number, and then the print function. So, on the second snippet of your code, inulit mo lang, iba lang yung name, no? Iba lang yung value, yung variable na name. But then, the code is the same, no? Para hindi tayo magpaulit-ulit, meron tayong pwedeng gamitin. Okay, so that's what we call function. Now, ano pa ba? Oh, for this code, we used the len function. Okay? Ang ginagawa niyan is nire-return niya yung kung ilan yung characters nung string. No? Ano yung length ng string? So it takes one parameter, okay? And evaluate niya yung parameter na yun kung ilan yung length. Okay? So, ayun nga. There are exactly two lines that are the same in the first and second part of the code. So, when you find code duplication in your scripts, it's a good idea to check if you can clean things up a bit by using a function. So, yun nga kasi, diba, ulit lang eh. Now, how do we use a function? You begin by writing yung def keyword. So, with this, it's an indication that you are defining a function. So def, and then the function name, and then the parameter that your function will take. Tapos, it will also end with a semicolon. Now, when you press enter, sa Python application kasi mag-space ka pa. But then sa Google Colab, no need to press yung space bar, no? Kasi naka-automatic na siyang naka-indent. Now, back to where we were. Itong second and third line, ito yung body of your function. No? So, talagang naka-indent siya. Yung body ng function, ibig sabihin, yun yung mag-execute once you call this function. Okay? So, let's see what is the content of our lucky number function. So, dyan, nag-introduce tayo ng variable, okay, which is yung number. Tapos, we set its value to be len of yung variable name times 9. And then next, we print this statement here, hello plus name, and then your lucky number is yung number. Okay, so what's gonna happen? When you write this code, tapos gusto mo nang i-execute, no? So, what we did here is we just called on the function, and then you put the parameter. Ano ba yung gusto mong value ni name? Let's say k. So, when you press enter or when you run the code, lalabas na siya, hello k, your lucky number is 27. And then, when you want to use the same function, tapos different yung parameter mo, ganun lang, palitan mo lang yung parameter. So, ayan. In here, we're now using Amber. So, ayan, no need to repeat the code, the whole code, no? So, you just call on the function and change the parameter. Okay? Ayan. Okay, so for this, we have an exercise. Okay. Identify the repeated pattern and replace it with a function called month_days that receives the name of the month and the number of days in that month as parameters. Adapt the rest of the code so that the result is the same. Confirm your results by making a function call with the correct parameter for both months listed. Ayan, so may repeat, no? May repetition dito na nangyari. So, what you're gonna do is to just create a function that will simplify yung code, no? Or clean the code. Okay. Next, we're feeding information into functions through their parameters. So the values of those parameters may come from different places, like a file on our computer or through a form on a website. So, ayan. The result of the function is still the same no matter where the parameters come from. Next, we have code style. Ano ba yung code style? On the whole, having good or bad style when you write code doesn't make much difference between a script succeeding or crashing. But it can make a big difference for the people who use it and contribute to it. So, imagine meron kang code na pagkahaba-haba. And tama naman yung nilalabas niyang output. Okay, so it's okay. But then, if you can simplify the code, if you can shorten the code, much better para mas madaling maintindihan. At saka, pag ikaw, halimbawa, ginawa mo yung code ngayon, tapos binalikan mo 5 years from now, hindi mo na yan maintindihan kung masyadong magulo. Okay, so, ayun. Dapat good yung style. So, bad style can even give the script's author a headache if it's been a while since they've wrote it. So, yun, malilito ka na rin sa sarili mong programs, sarili mong code. A good style can make a script look almost like natural human language. It can make the script's intent and construction immediately clear to the reader. So, ibig sabihin, pagkakita pa lang, alam na, gets na kung ano yung purpose, kung ano yung gagawin ng code na yan. Okay. Good code style makes life easier for people who have to maintain the code and helps them understand what it does and how it does it. It can also reduce errors since it makes updating the code easier and more straightforward. Kasi, sa totoong buhay, hindi lang naman ikaw yung let's say you're a programmer, no? or you're working with other people. Okay? Yung code kasi na kinreate mo, hindi lang naman ikaw yung gagamit. So it's highly possible that other people will use your code. So in order for others to understand your program, your code, so syempre dapat may good style, yun. So hindi siya dapat mahirap intindihin. So we have the following principles to creating a good, well-styled code. So number 1 is self-documenting code. So ibig sabihin, it is written in a way that's readable and doesn't conceal its intent. So for this example, you have def. So nag-introduce ka ng function. Okay, so you call the function calculate. And then the function calculate receives the parameter d. And then you have the variable q, sabi mo it's 3.14. And then you have z equals q times d raised to 2. Kasi power to, di ba? Pag dalawang asterisk. And then sabi mo print z. So, what do you think about this code? Gets mo ba kung ano yung gusto niyang gawin? Alam mo ba kung ano yung calculate tayo, pero ano ba yung kinakalculate mo? Ano ba yung D? Ano ba yung Q? Ano ba yung Z, di ba? We don't know. We have no idea. So, ito pala, no? So, problems with this code. It's hard to determine the purpose of the code. Kasi hindi mo nga alam ano ba si calculate? Ano nga? The names of the variables don't give the reader much information. So, Q. Ano ba yung pwede mong i-relate sa Q? Hindi naman natin alam. No? There are no clues as to what the result might be used for, even though you can likely work out the result of the calculation. It's super easy na, ano nga to, Q times D squared. But then, ano si Z? No? Yun natin alam. Saan mo gagamitin si Z? What's it for? In programming language, when we rewrite code to be more self-documenting, we call this process refactoring. There. Now, when we refactor the code above, okay, let's see. When you define a function called circle underscore area, and then yung parameter is radius. Yung tawag dito, you introduce a variable pi, you set it equal to 3.14, tapos you set another variable, tawagin mo siyang area, equal to pi times radius squared, and then you print area. When you call the function, there. So ito, mas gets natin na yung kinakalculate pala niya ay area of a circle. And si Q pala, it's actually pi. No? And si Z pala, it's the area. Okay, so pi r squared. So ganun. You use variables that are relevant. No? Or variables na madaling maintindihan. Okay, hindi yung basta kagagamit ng x and y, ganyan. Okay, something like that. So the names of the variables and the function reflect their purpose, which helps the reader understand the code more quickly. But sometimes, you may need to use a particularly tricky bit of code in your script. Okay, so when good naming and clean organization can't make the code clear, you can add a bit of explanatory texts to the code. You do this by adding what we call a comment. Yan, kung hindi na kaya na i-explain mo lahat yung kailangan mo talagang gumamit ng let's say variable x, variable y, ganyan, or masyado ng maraming let ganon. You can simply use a comment. Mag-add ka na lang ng comments sa yung code. So, in Python, comments are indicated by the hash character. Ito. Hashtag. So, when your computer sees a hash character, it understands that it should ignore everything that comes after that character on that line. Okay, so, pag tinype mo yan, so, naglagyan ka ng hash. Anything after it is considered a comment. So, hindi yun i-read ni Python. So, comments let you explain why a function does something a certain way. Okay. Pwede ka mag-explain dyan. Comments. Allows you to leave notes to your future self or other programmers to remind you of what needs to be improved and why. Ayan. So, note to self. Parang ganon. Use the style guide to structure your code in a way that's readable by others or by you in 6 months when you've forgotten why you wrote that code in the first place. So, yun. Okay, so exercise. Yan. The function used to calculate the area of a rectangle is not very, madali lang naman to. I-refactor mo lang yung, yung code. Ay. And then, the function below converts miles to kilometers. Okay, so, ayan. Ganyan yan. Show that the result of the print function is ganitong format. Calculate the round trip in kilometers by doubling the result. Okay, so ayan mga output. Okay. And then this function compares two numbers and returns the numbers in increasing order. So ayan. I-arrange mo. Fill in the blank so that the print statement displays the result of a function call in order. Dali lang naman to. Okay, and then recall the lucky number function. Then change the code so that instead of printing the message, it will be returned. In this manner, calling the line can either print the message or do something else with it if needed. And then create a visual function that has name as its parameter. Ayan. Okay, so the function returns the message, stay lucky, and then the name. Connect this message to the message of the function in number 4. Okay, so yung desired output natin is hello. Your lucky number is stay lucky. Yeah. Right? Okay, next. Conditionals. Comparing things. So, conditionals are actually comparing things. Python can compare values. So, this lets us check whether something is smaller than, equal to, or bigger than something else. This allows us to make the result, to take the result of our expressions and use them to make decisions. So, yan parang math lang talaga. Boolean is another data type. It represents one of two possible states, either true or false. So every time you compare things in Python, the result is a Boolean value. Okay? Boolean of the appropriate value. There. So, ito, yung equality operator natin is different from the usual equality operator. Kasi if you will remember, yung ito, di ba? Ito. Pag naganito ka, let's say D equals B times C. Ibig sabihin, you are assigning B times C to the variable D. Now, kapag ang gusto mo naman sabihin na equal talaga siya dun sa isa, ang gagamitin mo, equality operator. Okay? Kasi yung single equal sign, that's your assignment operator. Okay? Double equal sign is your equality operator. Okay? So this operator is used to test whether two things are equal to each other. Okay? So halimbawa, ito na nga yung example. So, and then we have the not equals operator. So it's indicated by exclamation mark, tapos exclamation point, tapos equal sign, no? Exclamation mark. Okay. Exclamation point. So the negated form of the equality operator. So let's have some examples. So print 10 greater than 1. So alam naman natin na 10 is greater than 1. It's true. So, yung lalabas na output is true. Next, we have print cat equals dog. Okay? Yung string mo na cat ay iba sa string mo na dog. Okay? Since hindi talaga sila equal, ang lalabas dyan, false. No? And then, print 1 not equal to 2. Is 1 not equal to 2? Yes, it's true. Kaya true to. Print 1 is less than double quotation marks 1. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Yung 1 na to, this is a number. Yung 1 na to, this is a string. You cannot compare two different data types. Yan. Okay, so mag-error siya. So, yung operator daw is not supported between instances of int and str. Okay? So, kasi ito integer, ito string. Now, what about saying print 1 double equal sign tawag dito double quotation marks 1. So, is the integer 1 equal to the string 1? No. Kaya it's false. Alright, so ganun lang siya. Logical operators. So these operators allow you to connect multiple statements together and perform more complex comparisons. In Python, the logical operators are the words and, or, and not. Okay. To evaluate as true, saan nyo ba na-encounter to? Siguro sa programming nyo din before, no? Kaya, kung nag-take kayo kung may philosophy class kayo before. Alam naman natin to na yung and, dapat parehong expression, true. Yung or, isa lang sa dalawang expressions, yung true. Or many expressions. Basta may isang true na yon. Okay? Kapag pag lahat ng expression mo false, edi yung or mo is false. Okay? So, yan. Print yellow greater than cyan and brown greater than magenta. So, ayan. Is yellow greater than cyan? And is brown greater than magenta? Right? So, yung ano kasi, yung uppercase is different from lowercase din. And yung may hierarchy. Okay. So, greater than ano nga yun? Okay. This is true. Why? Kasi, yung A is less than B. Okay, so let's just have another one. Kasi as you go farther sa alphabet, the value gets higher. Okay? That's why yung Y natin is greater than our C. But then, ayan. If you will compare yung uppercase sa lowercase, yung lowercase has a higher value kay Python as compared sa uppercase. Okay? So, may mga hierarchy tayo dyan. Okay. So, ayan. Ano nga yung isa? Brown, magenta. What do you think would be the answer? Ano nga yun? Brown greater than. Okay, so what do you think would be the answer here? Is B greater than M? No, it's false. So when you combine so false kasi true and false is false. There you go. Okay, for sige mamaya na lang. Print 25 greater than 50 or 1 not equal to 2. What is the answer here? Is 25 greater than 50? False, no? This is false. Or 1 not equal to 2. Is 1 not equal to 2? This is true. So, false or true is true. Okay? The not operator inverts the value of the expression that's in front of it. Okay? You have here print, not 42 double equal sign answer. So, is 42 equal to the string answer? False, diba? Eh, may not ka dito. May not operator. So, not false is true. Alright? There. Next, we have comparison operators. Okay, so, in Python, comparison operators are used to compare values. When a comparison is made, again, Python returns a Boolean result or simply a true or false. So, this is just a summary. To check if two values are the same, use the equality operator, not the assignment operator. To check if two values are not the same, use the not equals operator. To check if values are greater than or less than, use yung ating operator for greater than and less than. If you try to compare data types that are not compatible, like checking if a string is greater than an integer, Python will throw a type error. Okay, so you can never compare a string to an integer. There's no answer for that. We can make very complex comparisons by joining statements together using logical operators with our comparison operators. So yan, marami ka nang makikreate dyan. No? Ayan. Branching with if statements. The ability of a program to alter its execution sequence depending on the values of variables is called branching. So, examples of branching in everyday life. If it's before noon, you might greet someone by saying good morning instead of good afternoon or good evening. Diba? So, una, i-check mo muna. Is it before noon? If that is true, then you greet someone good morning, no? Instead of good afternoon or good evening. Now, next example. If it's raining outside, you might choose to take an umbrella. Okay, so, una, i-check mo muna, umuulan ba? If yes, then magdala ka ng payong. If it's cold, you probably wear a jacket. So, ano ba, malamig ba? If yes, wear a jacket. Okay, so, yun yung everyday examples. Examples in everyday life. So, paano naman yun sa ating scripts, sa ating code? So, in your scripts, you can instruct your computer to make decisions based on your inputs. Okay, so, yeah. Example, in many companies, new employees can choose the username they'll use to access the company's systems. And usually, the chosen username needs to fit with a given set of guidelines. Companies can set different criteria for what a valid username looks like. So, example, let's assume that in your company, a valid username has to have at least 3 characters. Okay? Tapos, you've been tasked with writing a program that will tell the user if their choice is valid or not. Okay? So, nag-define tayo ng function. Hint underscore username. It will take the parameter username. If len username is less than 3, sabihin, ang ilalabas daw is, invalid username must be at least 3 characters long. Okay? We write the keyword if followed by the condition that we want to check for, and then followed by a colon. After that comes the body of the if block, which is intended further to the right. There are some similarities between how an if block and the function are defined. The keyword, either def or if, indicates the start of a special block. At the end of the first line, we use a colon, and then the body of the function or the if block is indented to the right. There's also an important difference between how an if block and a function are defined. The body of the if block will only execute when the function evaluates to true, otherwise it is skipped. So yun guys, di ba yung function natin, when you define a function, yung body niya naka-indent. Now, kapag nag-introduce ka ng if statement dyan, may sariling body yung if statement. So, naka-indent ulit yon. Alright? Now, yung body of the if statement will only run kung naging true dito sa condition sa taas. If this is false, skip lahat yan. Next na. Dito na. Ganon. Okay, so let me just tell you something else dito. So, sige. And so, let's try to do this. Okay, so def hint username, and then it will take the parameter username, so semicolon sa dulo. Yan, kung napansin mo, nag-auto-indent na siya dito sa Google Colab. Pero if you're using the actual Python app sa Windows or sa Mac, mag spacebar ka pa. Okay, so ano yung body ng function natin? If yung len daw ng username is less than 3, so ibig sabihin 3 and up, okay. So you tell the user na invalid username must be at least 3 characters long. Ayan. So, ayan. And then, let's say, kung tama naman, kung yung username is 3 and above yung length, then else print let's just say valid, no? Valid username. And so let's call the function hint username. Let's say AB. So there, okay, kung ano naman, edi valid naman siya. Let's say okay, there you go. Now, what if gusto nating mag-input talaga si user, hindi yun tayo yung nag-i-input? Okay, we can call on the input statement. Okay, for example, ito, username equals input. Ayan. Tapos, username. Guys, pag ginawa natin to, yung username, itong part na to, lalabas yan, no? Parang hihingi ka ng input sa user. And then, kung ano man yung ilagay ng user, yun yung ma-store sa username na variable. Okay? So, let's try. Okay. So, kung napansin mo, nag-ask na siya ng value. No, it's no longer you. It's no longer parang the programmer yung nagsulat ng code who inputs the value. It's now the user. Kunwari. Yeah. Kunwari. So, let's just say yung username ko is skyscraper. Ay, joke lang. Dapat wala in-enter ko. Mali ba? User, ay. Skyscraper. Ayan. Tapos, pag nag-enter ka, ayun. No? Pinindot ko din yung play eh. Ayun, mali. So, ayun. That's how you use the input function. Okay? So, pwede nyo magamit to guys to make your code better. Yan. Okay? So, the input function. Alright. Where are we? So, ayan. Otherwise, it's skipped. Ayun na nga, guys. If you will remember kanina, nung gumamit tayo nung mas maiksing, sige, ulitin nga natin. Ayan. Let's say we just put A. So, invalid username must be at least 3 characters long. Okay. So, yan. Nag-skip siya dito kasi it became it became true. So, nag-skip. Okay. Ini-skip kapag nag-evaluate as false. Okay, nag-go kapag evaluated as true. Yan. Dali lang yan. Ayan. So, else statement. Nagamit na natin yung else. Else statements, recall the username example. So, ito na nga. Ginawa na natin yan. The else statement is very useful, but we don't always need it. Say we want to have a function that checks if a value is even or odd. So def is even function, parameter is number. Now, the body of the function contains if number modulo 2. Oh guys, modulo. Double equal sign 0. Return true, else return false. Yeah. Okay, so modulo operator. This operator performs integer division. Ano ba yung integer division? It returns the remainder of the division operation. Okay, so the integer division is an operation between integers that yields two results which are both integers, the quotient and the remainder. For the modulo operator, ang ibabalik niya sa'yo yung remainder. Yan. You might feel more comfortable using the else statement, even if it's not needed. Both ways of writing things this are correct. So, blah blah blah. The if statement allows us to branch the execution based on a specific condition being true. The else statements lets us set a piece of code that run only when the condition of the if statement was false. If you return a value inside an if block, then the code after the block will only be executed if the condition was false. Ayan. And then we have elif. Ano naman yung elif? It's like else if. The if and else blocks allow us to branch execution depending on whether a condition is true or false. But what if there are more conditions to take into account? Mawa, hindi lang dalawa yung kondisyones, madami. This is where the elif statement, which is short for else if, comes into play. Going back to the example of the username validation, what if your company also had a rule that usernames longer than 15 characters are not allowed? So, yan. If len is less than 3, sabihin mo, invalid. Else, so meaning, yung username is 3 and above. If 3 and above, magkakaroon ka na naman ng if statement. If len is greater than 15, sabihin mo, ano na, invalid na ulit yan. Else, valid yung username mo. So, medyo mahaba siya. Okay, this is okay, but it can be hard to read kasi nag-nest na yung statement mo eh. So, kumbaga, mahaba na. Madami ka ng sub. To avoid unnecessary nesting and make the code clearer, Python gives us the elif keyword, which lets us handle more than 2 comparison cases. So, ayan. If len is less than 3, invalid. Else if len is greater than 15, sabihin mo ulit, invalid. So, all else, saka siya magiging valid. Okay? Ganon. So, kung ito false dito, kung dito false dito, saka pa lang siya magiging valid. Okay? There. This is shorter and much easier to understand as compared to this. Masyadong mahaba, no? So this is a cleaner code as compared to this one. The condition must be true for the body of the elif block to be executed. The main difference between elif and if statements is we can only write an elif block as a companion to an if block. That's because the condition of the elif statement will only be checked if the condition of the if statement was not true. So, hindi ka pwedeng magkaroon ng elif agad-agad kung wala kang if. So, if muna, bago elif, kung maraming conditions. No? Ganon. There's no limit to how many conditions we can add. Okay? So, yan. Pwede kang if, and then elif. Pwede wala ka ng else sa dulo. Alright. Yan. Exercise. Okay, so, comparison operators, ano lang to? Summary of what we discussed earlier. No? So, notation natin for checking kung equal ba talaga. So, it's the double equal sign. Kung not equal, it's exclamation point and then equal sign. Smaller than or equal to, bigger than or greater than or equal to. Okay? So, ganyan. Mali yung uunahin mo yung equals tapos greater than. Dapat yung muna, inequality before the equality sign. Okay? Logical operators, A and B. So, both are true. A or B, isa tama, true. Parehong mali, false. Not A, babalik ta rin lang. Okay? Branching blocks. In Python, we branch our code using if, elif, and else statements. This is the branching syntax. If you have the first condition, pag nasatisfy yung first condition, gagawin niya yung block. And then you have another if block here. And then, kung nag-false dito sa if condition, mag-check siya ngayon sa elif statement. Elif statement contains the second condition. Kapag nag-false ulit sa elif statement, pupunta siya sa else statement. Else block. I-execute niya yung else block. So, again guys, kapag nag-false yung condition, i-disregard yung block. Nag-false yung condition, i-disregard yung block. Okay? Pag nag-true yung condition, saka lang to, i-execute. No? Tas all else, hindi na yan ma-execute kasi nag-true na dito eh. Remember, the if block will be executed if condition 1 is true. The elif block will be executed if condition 1 is false and condition 2 is true. The else block will be executed when all the specified conditions are false. Yan. Okay? So, yan. So, that's the end of lecture 2.